Hello and welcome to CIO Leadership Live in ASEAN. My name is James Henderson, Editorial Director of CIO based in Singapore, and I'll be your host today as we welcome Amar Khan, CIO of Asia Pacific at BNY Mellon and a CIO 75 honoree. Amar, how are you doing?
Living the dream, my friend. How are you, James?
Good, thank you. And how's Singapore? You enjoying it?
I love Singapore. Singapore's home.
Good stuff. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today. It's great to see you as well and have you join the show. Now, we'll get into a little bit around your priorities and strategies, but perhaps a little bit about you, your role in the company.
Okay. So my role is the CIO for Asia Pacific. So we provide services to our businesses and clients across the region, delivering consistent, scalable, reusable technology, looking at niche client solutions in the region, last mile delivery, local execution, and regulatory reporting mandates. We cover 7 countries across the region. And although we provide core technology in the region, we also deliver our global enterprise solutions to our local clients as well. We look at local innovation and look at how do we collaborate with our clients, co-creating to provide them solutions outside of the market. And ensuring service availability, managing technology risks, and providing excellent user experience.
Good stuff. Now, based on your accent as well, 2 questions. What brought you to this side of the world? And 2, a little bit about your own background and journey in the tech sector.
Okay, so I've been out in Singapore. This is my 13th year now. I'm originally from Southwest London, a little town called New Malden, which is not far from Wimbledon, where they play the tennis, which most people generally know. As I said, Singapore is now home. What brought me out here? About 14 years ago, I decided that I wanted to get more international experience, and we actually started looking at the Middle East. And I was working at Credit Suisse at the time, and an opportunity came out to move out to Singapore to build out Singapore as the Asia hub. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think twice. I think it was about 6 weeks after having the initial conversation, we'd moved out to Singapore.
Wow. And the rest is history, right? 13, 14 years later.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now, I'm very aware that we're both sat in the office here, not too far away in Singapore, talking to each other. So it's evident of the things going back to some level of normality post-pandemic. But how are you seeing things change in the workplace? I mean, culturally, there's lots of elements to it, isn't there? Some people are back to the office, some people are not. What are you seeing as some of the big changes?
So I think the biggest change is specifically at BNY Mellon, we introduced the Future of Work initiative, which is a kind of a hybrid model where staff get to work from home a couple of days a week and come into the office a couple of days a week. And I think the value that creates is you have the flexibility to work from home, but you also have the flexibility for those particular days to come in, collaborate, work with your team members, have that social interaction, do those whiteboarding sessions that, I mean, you could do on some technologies, but there's nothing like, whiteboarding on an open screen, on an open whiteboard. I think that's kind of changed the way we work. Having the ability to work, I mean, I generally work from home on Mondays and Fridays. Mondays is normally because of, you have weekend changes. It's just easier to work home on a Monday in case there's an issue. Plus, obviously, then I can plan for the week. Friday, it's good. I mean, I encourage my team also to take out a couple of hours on a Friday morning to do training, which they can do uninterrupted at home. I was actually recently traveling. I was in our career office and then in Pittsburgh and New York. And it was brilliant to see people. It was brilliant to see those faces that I'd seen on Teams calls or Zoom as we are now, but actually have that proper face-to-face interaction. I was in the canteen at our head office in New York, and I bumped into so many people who'd I'd just heard of, but never had the opportunity to meet. So those water cooler conversations, those, corridor conversations, as much as people say they are nice, honestly, in person, they're priceless. I think the other thing is, during the pandemic, we onboarded a lot of staff. We'd been hiring, we're still hiring. And it was good to actually have those face-to-face meetings and have those team sessions with staff members that had joined during the pandemic. Um, I think the value that that creates for them to be able to, sit there and talk to their team members rather than having to do it on Teams adds a huge amount of value. I mean, when you want to talk to somebody on Teams, you generally have to book a meeting. Gone were those days where you could have a 5-minute conversation, but now coming back into the office, you can.
And I think, that coming from someone like yourself, a technologist, a CIO, this is your, bread and butter type of work and on the technology side, but you're still obviously advocating for that human element and getting that balance right between, yes, using the technologies and the platform, but there's nothing beats all sitting in a boardroom or around a table, actually fleshing it out in person. So I think that balance is key. Now, you mentioned there, Amar, that obviously meeting new staff and onboarding, and a lot of people have had that challenge over the last 2 years of bringing new staff into their businesses. But from your side as a CIO, in terms of delivery, how are you keeping a balance, I suppose? Your team motivated. You mentioned that flexibility for them to come into the office and work from home, but also your stakeholders happy. So you've got the cultural side of making sure everyone's all good, but you've still got a job to do, right?
Yeah. So in terms of delivery, I mean, as I said, we now have this hybrid approach. But even during the pandemic, we actually managed to do quite a few major programs, and we migrated and we relocated data centers remotely, and that was done with people sitting at home. We have done a number of disaster recovery tests with people physically sat at home. We've done a number of client onboarding. We've done a number of key technology delivery for some of our major clients, and that, I think, as much as it comes down to the right leadership and mentorship, also comes down to the individuals within the organization and the individuals within the team. I was pleasantly surprised how everyone stepped up during the pandemic and just got on with it. Where there were people working from home and they had requirements, technology enabled them. Staff wanted to have an additional monitor at home. They needed to have a speakerphone. They wanted to have a wireless headset because they wanted to be able to stand up and walk around while they were on meetings. We provided that. So I think from a technology perspective, we really enabled the bank and our staff to be able to work in the best way possible. Now, in terms of how do we deliver, I think it's very important to have strong relationships with your business partners and with your clients. So if and when you do come up against issues or roadblocks, then having those relationships and being able to have those open dialogue with your stakeholders, clients, business partners is very, very beneficial. And it's crucial to be able to work out a way forward.
And now just on, and you mentioned there, Amar, the changes that you've made, and some of that will have been necessity, right? Some of that, very high-end project work that you just didn't have a choice and had to do from home. And it's amazing how everyone steps up to the plate when they have to. Now, I was going to ask you what your leadership style is, and I will ask you that question stands, but has it changed in the last 2 years? So it's kind of a two-pronged question. What is your style as a leader, but have you noticed the change yourself just because of the circumstance we've all been in?
So I'll answer the first part of that, then I'll talk about how it's changed. So I personally pride myself in being authentic and being who I am and bringing that to the office or bringing that virtually online all the time. I generally like to lead through example. It was easier in the office because when there were issues, when there were meetings, you could, you'd be physically there, you'd step in, you'd help, you'd have those, those kind of nurturing conversations. What I had to do was slightly change my approach. I had to make it more obvious to people that I was available, that I was there if they needed help, if they needed to have conversations. So what I would generally do is throughout the week, I would just one-to-one Teams chat people across the region, just to ask them how they are, what they're doing, if they need any help, if they want to have a conversation. So I would, probably try and do maybe 6 or 7 people a week. Some weeks it was more, some weeks it was less, depending on my work schedule. But I think what I did was I made myself more approachable to people because they couldn't, just walk past my desk and come and talk to me. What I have done since I've been back to return to office as well is I mean, at the moment I'm sitting in my office, but I generally don't. I generally sit on the floor with the team as well, because I want people to actually come over. I don't want them to see, okay, we're back to the old ways of working. I need to go and make a schedule some time in the diary. I want people to feel that it's the same thing. As they could ping me on Teams, they could come over and shoulder tap and we could talk. And I think the last part about how I changed myself is I personally found it a bit overwhelming in the beginning with the whole disconnecting from the office and connecting at home. I know I struggled. So I know I struggled. There's definitely other people out there that struggled as well. So what we did was we had a number of different, kind of work-life balance sessions with the teams where we shared some of our challenges, some of our approaches. And I actually learned a lot from some of the team as well in terms of how they were disconnected. I love what I do. I have a passion for what I do. But sometimes that means that I'll kind of do too much on a day-to-day basis.
Won't stop, right?
Exactly. So I think that helped. And that also showed that I have vulnerabilities as well with the team. And it showed that I can learn from people within the organization as well. And that helped us bond.
Yeah, and I think what's coming out loud and clear here, Amar, is that human element of it. Yes, the CIO role, of course, and you were recognized for innovation, resiliency, leadership, and everything during our CIO 75. But that people element is equally, if not more important as well. Now, based on everything that's been going on over the last 12 to 24 months, what's important to you going forward? What are your top priorities in 2022? I say that being halfway through the year, and maybe beyond as well.
So I would say there's a couple of things. So if we talk about the human element as well, so it's about making sure that the people that we've recently hired, the people that were hired through the pandemic, have what they need to be able to be successful in this new hybrid work environment. I mean, we had people that didn't even have access to the office or passes to get in. So it's about making sure everyone is settled in this new environment, in this new way of working. It's about ensuring that we continue to be an employer of choice. Yep. And that's only through the way we interact with people. That's through the way we interact with our staff. That's through our DE&I initiatives. That's through the kind of employee engagement forums that we have. So I think that's the first element, is making sure that we have happy staff and we have the support that our staff need to be able to deliver. Because at the end of the day, we can only deliver if we have the right people, and the people are motivated, and they don't have, they don't have things in the back of their mind when they're sitting there, coding away or testing, et cetera, et cetera. Now, from a delivery perspective, it's about getting out there and reaching out to our clients again. As you know, Asia Pacific is a big region, but in some areas are small islands, right? You've got Singapore, we're disconnected from Hong Kong, we're disconnected from Taiwan, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea is getting out there, meeting my clients, meeting the regulators. Let's see how they feel. Let's see what they've been doing during the pandemic. Because again, you can't really have those conversations over Teams or WebEx. And it's about, I would say now re-benchmarking and seeing, what do we need to do in 2023? We have our book of work for 2022. We're delivering on that. It's now about planning for 2023. It's about looking at how do we co-create with some of our clients as well.
Great. Well, Amar,
I know that's a long-winded answer, but I don't think there's a straightforward answer to that question.
No, and I always laugh. I kind of say it as a close, as if it's, maybe this is from the media side, a flippant, oh, what's your priorities? I'm sure you've only got one or two. You've got a lot of priorities. You're a CIO across a region. So I'm sure there's a lot more as well. But Amar, I really appreciate you firstly taking the time to be with us today, but also sharing the human side of it. And I know I've referred to that a few times, but I think it's important. We, especially in the role of the CIO and what we do, we get fixated on the technology side and the innovation. Incredibly important and incredibly key. But I think what you've told us today is there's certainly other elements to consider as well that are equally, if not more important. So Amar, great to see you. Thank you very much for your time and really appreciate it.
And thank you very much, James.